From Svitek comes a weekly digital series that shares its insights, concepts, and findings from years of learning and mentorship. Welcome to Svitek Podcast.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Svitek Podcast. As you might have guessed, my name is Svitek. And today we're doing something a little bit special. Obviously, the aim that I have for this show is to help inspire creatives, such as yourself, through various methods and so forth, particularly mastering mental fortitude. Because it's one thing to have the right technical skills, but it's another to have the mental fortitude to be able to go out into the world and enact your vision. And today we're doing a little bit differently. We're going to combine both because I'm actually on location at my friend Khaliel's, and I'm going to interview him. So his name is Khaliel Abooboo, although that is his stage name, not his real name.
Yes. My real name is Khaliel Abdelrahim.
There you go. And so we'll start with a couple of projects, and then we'll sort of backtrack. So your latest project is called Black Spiderman. Yep. You did not create it, but you are Black Spiderman.
I am Black Spiderman. So a very close friend of mine, he actually created the show. What happened was I bought the suit because I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I bought the suit, I posted a picture of it on Instagram. My friend saw the picture and had an idea for a sketch and wrote it. Okay. And here we are.
So it's 5 episodes. They haven't all aired at the time of the filming of this. But yes. Did he always, like, what was when you say he wrote it, what was the story arc?
So originally, also a big note was that this happened 2 years ago from, not today, but 2 years ago. When he wrote it, we kind of just sat with it because we didn't know how to film what he wrote. It was a lot of things in there that, like, just technically, or like it was a lot of things that we didn't have the resources for. That's the cleanest, most succinct way I can put it. So we kind of sat on it. 2 years went by. You know, our knowledge grew, our resources grew, our networks grew, and we weren't doing anything. And so we started digging through old stuff, and we were like, oh, let's try to tackle this Black Spider-Man thing. I think we can actually make it happen now. There were a lot of rewrites. The first episode is probably the closest to the original script. Everything else is kind of new.
Which is kind of like the inciting incident. It's the world finding out that it's Black Spider-Man.
Exactly.
Or Spider-Man is black, rather.
Right. So, you know, it's cool. I'm very happy with it. I'm very proud of it. I hope everyone else loves it as well.
Well, talking about the first episode and just the series in general, it has a very, I don't know if you intended this, but I always look at it from a very political standpoint. Mm-hmm. And, you know, 2 years ago, for those that watch the first episode, it's basically a commentary somewhat on Trump and whatnot. Yes. So was that also part of the original 2 years ago?
That was not a part of the original 2 years ago. It was the original message. The whole point of this was that every time a black person does something, we as a society have the tendency to put black in front of it.
Listen, I'm still the same guy, okay? Literally nothing has changed.
Okay, well, bye, Black Spider-Man.
You don't have to call me black.
And then, you know, with superheroes, you got Black Lightning, Black Panther, or like whatever. And then it's a weird dynamic, right? Because on one end, you want to be looked at and treated as equals and treated fairly, or like whatever. But then on the other end, you want to say, oh, this is my culture. This is how we do things in my culture. This is a representation of us, right? Mm-hmm. So it's not to say like one way is bad and one way is right and one way is wrong. It's just kind of speaking on the topic of how we always have to put black in front of something, that whenever a black person does something.
Well, I want to put a pause on the technical stuff because there's definitely a lot to talk there, but I want to get your take on sort of essentially what is equality. I'll go to Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She said, like, for me, equality is having 9 women on the justice, branch. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of people kind of looked at, because to them, equality is like, okay, let's have 3 men, 3 women, and, you know, maybe some Latinos, some blacks. Mm-hmm. But, you know, what is... In terms of filmmaking, what does equal opportunity mean to you?
That's tough in terms of filmmaking because I've always for those who don't know, I like do both sides of the camera, and on the creator side, when you are creating something, you typically have a vision in your head, and like there's this story, there's this purpose, there's this person, like you have all of that in your head, and you're trying to get that out into the world. So when you talk about equality, it's kind of like, well, let's say if we're talking for a certain role or something, it's like, well, this role is kind of intended for this because the story is for this and the message is this, and it only kind of makes sense if it comes from this type of person. So that's why I don't get like too hung up on certain people populating a film rather than a little more diversity and making sure that we've evenly spread the juice around, because as a creative, that might not be the story you're trying to tell, and it's not anything wrong with that. I think the thing is that a lot of the people who are in positions to make things and have them seen on a bigger scale are of a certain like culture or branch or whatever, and so obviously their stories are going to tend to their culture and upbringing and all of that, which is nothing wrong, but it's just like, well, those are the most of the people who are able to make stuff.
Yeah.
So that's why.
Yeah. So you mentioned you play Black Spiderman, but you're also behind the scenes very heavily involved. Mm-hmm. And so what's the sort of crossover? I mean, did you out of necessity get into in front of the camera, or did you out of necessity get behind the camera originally? Originally,
out of necessity got behind the camera, but I think part of me always wanted to do it because I've always, like, even when before I moved out here, when I was like a teenager, I would grab my mom's camcorder and get some friends together and make some stuff. So and before then, I really wanted to do voiceover. That was like my whole goal. That was when you're a kid, they ask you, what you want to be when you grow up? I want to do voiceover. So
it felt like a necessary component to it to make your own luck, essentially.
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much.
And so how did you teach yourself? Because you're, to me, a very talented person. Both.
So nice.
Well, you are, you know, and both in terms of production, whether it's lighting, whether it's cinematography, all that. And then behind this, the post-production side of things, you are a very strong editor. Graphic design, some of the effects that are in Black Spiderman, I think really showcase what you're able to do.
Thank you.
So, some of it blows me, and I've been, I got into things wanting to be in production. So how did you attain that level?
No, I did not want to be in production. It was just kind of like I wanted to make stuff. I didn't know that meant that I was going to need to be in production, but that's kind of where it started. I went to film school. So I went to New York Film Academy here, which is actually here in Los Angeles, ironically in LA, but they have a campus in New York too. But that's where I got the kind of basics of my filmmaking skills. And then after you get in school, you're out in the real world. So I started working in production. You learn a lot doing that, and then there's YouTube. A lot of the effects on Black Spiderman I learned from big YouTubers that teach you how to edit these things. They build the assets, or they have the asset from somebody else who built it, and they teach you how to put it in and what you need to film in order to make the asset work in your shot and look real and believable. So those were my 3 learnings.
Okay.
School, the streets, and YouTube.
Oh, would you also say, I mean, this might be me projecting, but because as our friendship has ramped up, I've seen you do more and more. Again, so that might be me projecting because I'm more in the know of all the things you're doing. Right. But I would say in the last year, I've really seen you take the bull by the horns and, essentially make your own luck, make your own projects, and not wait on the sidelines being like, hey, pick me.
Yeah. And I think that just came from being tired of waiting and also not knowing what to do. So you kind of, let's say you move out here to LA and you're like trying to chase a dream. You don't know anybody. You know you want to do this thing, and there's all these other people who it seems like it's working for, and like you don't know what to do. I know that was my situation. I just got to a point where I was like, okay, well, what can I do with what I have? And that's, as you stated, is the whole like taking the bull by the horns and making your own luck and making your own content and seeing how far you can take it.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to toot my own horn because I'm sure there's other people who have said this to you, but you are a very hard worker and have worked for a lot of different people, you know, pro bono and all that. Mm-hmm. And I said to you, like, listen, people, I remember one of your trepidations was asking people to help you. Yeah. And, you know, what, I don't know, do you still have that fear now that, like, between earlier projects now culminating to Black Spiderman, do you sort of now see like, wow, I have a good group of people that want to just make cool shit?
Yeah, for sure. It's and it's definitely been a if you build it they will come type of thing, where like you make the show, you put it out there, and now people are like, oh, are you doing some more? Can I be a part of it? Like, what's going on? So there's that in addition to what you just said, which is one of my hangups was ask for people to help because, you know, I don't have much to offer. You know, it's like I can't really pay you. I hate the whole like experience and exposure because it's like most of the time it's like no. But I can maybe promise you a good time, maybe a free lunch, hang out with your buddies, you meet some new people. So I'm getting better at it.
Fair enough. Well, I think the trade-off is that you one of the things I said to you, you've always done that type of work for other people and never asked for anything in return. So I think that's the difference. That's not
also favors. Yes, build up your favors.
Yeah,
do that all the time.
So let's get back to Black Spiderman. What was the hardest episode to, I don't know, conceptually or to pull off production-wise?
It would be between, I would say the three, so the way we did it was we didn't shoot like a whole episode in a day. We only shot scenes in a day. And I would say the hardest one, the three hardest ones were the finale, which is the one with all the superheroes, the family one, which just came out last week, and the Craven one, which was week before last. But they were difficult for different reasons. Like the Craven one was difficult because we were looking for a specific type, and it was just really hard to find that guy. But we found him, but it just took a really long time. The family one, again, we needed a specific type, like Aunt May and the sister. Her name in the show, her name is Teresa, but in real life, her name is Jade. Like finding those characters were pretty tough, and which I'm happy we found them. Like they are great, but it's like took some time. And then the superhero one, it was just hard to coordinate so many people at the same time. That was probably the hardest. Actually, like on the ground filming one, because it was just so many people and there was a lot going on, and you were trying to capture all these little moments. But it worked out.
So what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from the process? And if you got a chance to do it again or for season 2 as the show continues, well, you know, what will you implement?
I think I will say one of the biggest ones is no's or blessings, because for every no that we got when we were trying to do something from our original idea, it made us go back into the lab and have to come up with something new. And I think it basically forced us to be creative and again use what we have to make something cool. And I think we did that. So every no is like a good thing. It's kind of like, okay, cool. All right, great. All right, I'm gonna come up with something else.
Have you ever read Robert Rodriguez's Rebel Without a Crew? Just out of curiosity.
It's been recommended to me, but no, I haven't gotten around to it yet. I'm familiar though,
because it's a similar mindset as far as it chronicles his first feature film that he made on $7,000 budget and how, you know,
impressive.
It is very impressive. And his mindset is that if if you're just strapped for cash, it'll force you to be creative, and too many so-called problems are seemingly solved by money, but they're really not.
Yeah.
And that's when budgets just balloon out of hand and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's, the other projects that you have, that hasn't seen the light of day, I don't think.
Not yet.
Is Shoot Your Shot.
Phil's being very modest right now. He came on and helped produce both of shows that we're talking about, Black Spiderman and Shoot Your Shot. But yeah, Shoot Your Shot is this game show concept that I had, where two comedians come in and use their best pickup lines, i.e. shoot their shot, at a sexy single. And then the sexy single chooses who shot their shot the best.
And it's both guys and girls. So
it's both guys and girls. It's all sexual orientations. And then there's no rules. Like, just say whatever you think will get you the win.
So where did that concept come from, and how did you kind of finally execute it? And
the concept, it was a mix of two ideas that, I'm sorry, it was a mix of two shows that I'm really big fans of, which is Nick Cannon's Wildin' Out and All Def Digital's Dad Jokes. So if anybody's ever seen those shows, Dad Jokes is a competition where two people just give their best dad jokes, and every time you make the other person laugh, you get a point. Wildin' Out is a improv comedy show, and they have one of these games called Let Me Holler, which they also give their best pickup line. And so it's kind of a hybrid of those two games, and it's really at the end of the day, the whole point is to make you laugh and let people flex their comedy muscle, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean, if there's any overarching thing that I'm noticing right now, it's that you're ambitious in terms of the size of the production. In terms of people, because when you talk about Shoot Your Shot, that's 3 people on camera at once at least.
Yep.
We go back to the last episode, which hasn't aired yet, of Black Spiderman, but it will.
Yep, it will.
So you just love a lot of people
Sundays
in
at
the scene.
10. Oh, I do. It's very problematic. It's very difficult to control so many things, and then make sure you're capturing every single thing. It's very tough. But I like now, as far if we're talking about like creative direction, I like a whole lot of things going on at the same time. Like, to the point where you kind of have to watch it again and be like, what were they doing while this person was doing this? Because I also wanted to feel like real life. Like, I wanted to feel like you are actually in the room. And I noticed that when I watch some other things, is we always kind of pause or go back in order to kind of service everyone and see what's happening. And I understand it in the sense of filmmaking, in order to like make sure that you deliver a story and that everyone can understand. But I think in 2019, we have a very like microwave culture as far as how we consume content, and I think we've also progressed like as people. Like, we are able to take in so much information so much better than we were 40, 50 years ago.
We also know the tropes, you know what I mean? Like, from years ago, like in Indiana Jones type of story, it's like, okay, it's been done before, great, that's the archetype, build on that.
Exactly. That too. Like, there's if you kind of get the basics of what's happening, you can have maybe 1 or 2 other things happening on top of that at the same time and be able to follow it. I mean, even if you like just look at the way we live our lives now, we're like on our phone while we're talking on our other phone and watching a television show, and we're keeping up with everything. Maybe not to the
Debatable.
best. Not to the best. Maybe not
I
to
always
the
debate
best.
that, but sure.
But like, okay, let's say you're on your phone while you're writing an email and the TV's going. Like, like you're not paying the full undivided attention that each one deserves, but you're able to kind of keep that going. And I just like that. I just find that very interesting, that aspect of human nature that we've grown into.
Okay. So let's go back to, you mentioned that you wanted to do voiceover work. And in particular, because I know that stems from your love of animation.
Yep, that's right.
Where did that come from? And I mean, there's so many questions I want to ask you just on that alone. But like, what does animation mean to you? That's obviously a general term, but like, how did you fall in love with cartoons essentially?
I honestly don't know. I mean, I really I thought every kid loved the cartoons. I really did. And then as we got older, kids will be like, "Oh yeah, I don't watch cartoons anymore." And I'd be like, "But I still do." And nobody else, really? So I'm like, there was no inciting incident where like someone introduced me to animation.
No radioactive spider.
There you go. Like as a kid, like my favorite shows were Rugrats and Hey Arnold. And that's why I wanted to do voiceover, because I wanted to be the voice of like one of the Rugrats, and then Power Rangers, and like all of like the superhero thing. And like, that was super cool to me too. It's always been a love just as a child.
Is it interesting because you watch some of these shows now still, and we were talking before we started, like Hey Arnold, how it really just still holds up, and there's just something smart there, right? And I think the shows that don't succeed try to play too much to a kid audience, meaning they're not, because they're trying to dumb it down, versus the ones that understand that kids are smart, and if they don't get everything, they'll get the core principle. And then as you revisit, you're like, oh, that's really deep.
It's also, specifically with Hey Arnold, it's also I just like the style of the show, like the soft jazz that plays throughout like, he's a cool kid, the messages that are in there.
He's a cool kid with a heart. It's not like he's like the smoking bully.
Right. It's a very, they did their thing. Like, it was like, it was great. I don't know how else to describe it. Stylistically, it's great. Love it.
Okay. So I know we're jumping all over the board here, but let's, so when did you make the decision to come out to LA? So you grew up in South Carolina.
Went to
North Carolina.
For undergrad, I studied mechanical engineering. I did a couple internships while I was in college, and I was like, wow, this is extremely boring. And I graduated because I came that far. I was going to finish. And I slept on my friend's floor for like 8 or 9 months trying to figure out my life, because I didn't want to do engineering anymore. Didn't have anywhere else to go. I wasn't going to go home. That was out of the question. So I just stayed in North Carolina, kept working at my job at the Greensboro Coliseum, which is an event arena in Greensboro, North Carolina. And one day I went to the gym with my friend, and I heard a commercial for a acting showcase. So I went and did it, and that is how I met one of the recruiters from New York Film Academy, and he told me, you should come out to LA and go to our school and learn filmmaking. So I said, sure. And now I'm here.
And okay, you saw an ad. I want to ask you, in today's day and age, what are the various resources for booking jobs? Or you mentioned like casting seemed to be a big problem. Like what are the places you're going for in this day and age to find that stuff? Because I think that's beneficial for people out there.
Depends on what you want to do. If you want to act, if you're in LA, you have LA Casting. If you're not in LA, you have Actors Access, which they work in LA as well. But Actors Access is, you can pinpoint if you want to do New York or Texas or wherever. There's Backstage. There's a bunch of websites. That would be like your first go-to if you don't know anybody. And then from there, you just want to tell people what you're doing. I've learned that over the years too. It really helps when people are like, "Hey, how's it going?" Like, that is your opportunity to tell people what you're doing, because you never know what they know or who they know that may be extremely beneficial to you. If you want to do production, there's a few websites out there as well. Staffmeup.com is one. Mandy, I've never really used them. And that one, I will say production is definitely a networking one. Like, you definitely, if you get on a show for whatever reason, if you're like PAing, if you're casting, if you're, I don't know, whatever you're doing, you want to talk to everyone, and you want to shake hands with everyone and broaden your network, because that is really how that is like the core of how jobs are given and found in production. At least that's been my experience.
So how do you do that without essentially bothering them? Where like, hey, I'm Khaliel. Yo, I'm busy. Get the fuck out of my face.
You get the fuck out of their face. At that point, you get the fuck out of their face. But there will be one person who will sit and talk to you. And, you know, if you're like totally new, you can ask questions. You can, if you're not, like, the thing is, they're all people. Like, we're all people, right? So you just want to talk about anything. You can talk about the lunch. You can talk about the crafty. You can talk about the weather. It doesn't matter. You just want to try to like find some kind of common ground to stand on and hold a conversation with this person. And if it doesn't, it's not going to pan out with every single person on set, but you just want to meet everyone you can because you never know.
And you don't want to be the negative, because I find like the one thing you don't want to have a common ground with is just having a bitch session about like,
That
this
too.
sucks.
That too.
Sucks.
That too.
Because I don't think that's the type of person you would want to network with ultimately.
Well, I would assume if you're new, you probably would be just excited to be there. So I would assume you'd already be in a positive space.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right.
So what about the other half though of, it's one thing, because I see a lot of people make this mistake. It's all about networking. It's all about networking. And then the opportunity presents itself and it's like, okay, you've not proven yourself, or you don't even have that work ethic to begin with. You just like talking about your quote unquote work ethic.
Yeah. You kind of got to be about it for sure. If you're going to talk about it, you got to be about it. I'm sorry. I'm not quite. I don't know
what advice. I mean, I guess there's not really that much of a question there besides of like, you know, essentially does the walk have to match the talk?
It definitely, the walk has to match the talk. You have to like, somebody hits you up about something, just say yes. Don't worry about whatever little reservations you have in your head. Just go for it. Just do it. You will figure it out along the way. It is not that hard. We are not brain surgeons. Like, just do it.
What if they get fired? What advice do you have?
Get fired, apologize, and look for the next job. It is not that big of a deal. There are plenty of jobs out here. There are plenty of shows, movies, whatever, commercials. You will be okay. But as far as like the mental fortitude you kind of, I don't know how you teach that. I don't know how you. Well, I mean, if you want it,
let me ask you
need
this.
to go for it.
How many of your friends? Because it's a very competitive industry, and I feel like you and I have been blessed enough where our friends don't really compete with each other, and they want the best for each other.
Right.
But we've also seen on the outskirts people that want to just slit each other's throats. I don't know. How do you navigate that? And I don't know. Do you have to be a certain way, or you really think like there's a chance to just collaborate and be okay?
I don't think you. First, the whole filmmaking, specifically the filmmaking, is 100% a collaborative effort. You can't do all of this alone. You can't film I mean, depending on what it is, obviously, but it's really difficult to like film something, write something, edit something, distribute something all by yourself, cast something, even if you're going to cast, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a collaborative sport.
Hell, I'm writing a friggin' novel, which is supposed to be a solitary act, and I have like 10 people helping me.
There you go. It is a collaborative sport. So it's kind of, so when you meet those people who are like that, I would just say walk the other way, fam. Like, I don't know. Like, that's not what you want. Obviously, that's not the kind of person that you want to network with or you want to build with anyway. So you kind of, again, the no is a blessing. So walk away. Like, there's plenty of other people here that are not like that. You go find them.
You know, I think in terms of what the constant thread of what you're saying is, there's always an option. And I think where people run into a problem is when they just feel like there's nothing left. Like the wheels are about to come off because they're overworking hard, or they're never going to be able to begin their project because they don't have the starting point.
Yeah.
But it's like, you know what? Just find a starting point.
Yes.
Of any kind.
Use what you have. Whatever you have, just use that and make that work until you get something else. And in doing so, you learn so much because you start to cut the fat, so to speak. Like, oh, I don't really need this because all I need is this right here, and I can make this whole other thing work. I don't need all these other attributes or whatever. But yeah, I would say the common thread is there's always an option. There's always where there's a will, there's a way. So, but back to mental fortitude and having that will, I really don't know how to teach that. Like if it means that much to you, you will go out and do it. You will not have an excuse. You will not find an excuse, because there's always an excuse to not do it.
Yeah. Well, as they say, excuses are like assholes. Everyone's got one.
Everyone's got one. But if you want it, you're going to go and do it.
Well, there's a great quote. I'm going to paraphrase, and I forget who said it, so I apologize. But it's basically like successful people aren't successful because they don't have flaws. Like they're successful in spite of their flaws. Like they go through the same bullshit that you and I do, and they do it. I want to get your opinion on something, though. There's people, I think the people that we tend to know, they're so ambitious that they want it like right away. And that's how the wheels come off versus not having a starting point, which I guess technically could be the same symptom because they don't know what the starting point is, that they just start 10 different starting points.
Right. I was reading an article. Actually, Phil sent me this article about career goals, and I'm going to summarize it for you guys. It's like, there's the article. It says, write down your 25 goals, circle your top 3, and ignore the rest of them. And the good thing about that is it forces you to look at what success looks like and set realistic goals about what you can accomplish right now in this very moment. So for the ones that are tackling so many things at one time, that's a little exercise that could really help you take the next step. So where you can get to that big thing, whatever that is for you, but the step right now is you need to figure that out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think too many people forget it's a journey, not a destination, that old cliche of things. And just because you don't get to do a particular thing right now doesn't mean you can't ever do it. And to be honest, like you and I are both young, but I actually am excited by the prospect of, in today's day and age, you can shift careers. You know, you can be in one industry for 10 years, 15, and then make a complete shift. And many people do. And that's exciting. Now, I don't know if I want to do that necessarily, but maybe in terms of the projects that I'm working on, perhaps.
Right. And we're staying alive a lot longer now. We're younger longer. You know, we're doing more as like human beings.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Sorry. So the possibilities are endless.
They are. What projects do you have coming up that you're excited about?
Okay. Well, currently Black Spiderman is running. You guys should be seeing Shoot Your Shot probably over the summer.
2019,
probably over the summer, 2019.
Right after Avengers Endgame.
We're gonna, and then also the YouTube. I'm really gonna focus on building the YouTube and doing some more content. So me and the Black Spiderman team have a few other projects that we're in development for right now that will be out this year. It's kind of hard for me to give you finite dates because it's still kind of in the early stages.
Yeah.
And then there's also sketches and different things that I do just around town from people that I've met over the years, or other things that I've got going on. We're about to shoot this pilot with
Roy Ellis.
He does the Jones barbecue foot massage. Foot massage. If you guys have seen that meme, we've got a pilot coming soon.
Okay.
I don't know exactly what,
like a 22-minute pilot, or like a shorter version.
I have
no idea.
No idea.
Isn't that the beauty that, like, because if you're making a pilot for TV, it essentially has to be either 22 minutes or it has to be, let's say, 45.
40, yeah.
And in today's day and age, like, whatever.
Right.
It's a 13-minute pilot, as long as it's engaging. If it's 5 minutes, great.
That's
Who
whatever.
cares?
Yeah, that's the beauty of the internet, man. The internet has opened up so many possibilities. And going back to the earlier thing about tackling so many things at one time, it's are like, what does success look like for you? A lot of things you want to do, you can actually do it right now, like, because of the internet. The internet has made it possible. And it's another thing, and I knew this before Black Spiderman, but it definitely reinforced it, is there's so much stuff that's out there that you can have that's free, whether it's knowledge, whether it's an asset that you need in order to complete a project. There's so many things that's out there that you can actually get your hands on because of the internet.
Yeah.
You just need to go and find it.
What do you think of? So, I'll throw out his name. He's a mutual friend of ours, and he wants to do a feature in the summer. Now, his mind's on like what cameras I'm going to use and this and that. And I don't want to disparage him, but I'm like, dude, like, you're just thinking of the body of the camera and how much it's already going to cost you. Let's put that money instead into something else. Like, at the end of the day, what's going to grab people is not how well it's shot. Like, there's movies shot on iPhones, and as long as the content's good, we're good.
I was gonna say, I would say, when it comes to filmmaking, focus should be story and how you're gonna tell that story, because those are two extremely important aspects of filmmaking, more important than whoever's in it. Where you shoot it and how you shoot it is part of how you tell the story, for sure. So I won't fight you on that. But just things like what kind of camera you're using, like, nobody cares. As long as you can see, like, even if it's out of focus, like, people really kind of don't care.
Well, okay.
I mean, I would care, but yeah.
I definitely have my own thoughts, and I want to expand upon this.
I would love to get your feedback on this too.
Well, I'll definitely do a large episode about this, but I think there's somewhat of an epidemic where the kid who happens to have money or whatever, he just saves up, buys like a red camera, and all of a sudden he gets hired to be a DP on a movie just because he has a red camera. And it's like, dude, you are not a cinematographer.
But also, that filmmaker should have known better than to just hire somebody because they have the fancy camera.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that's correct, but I feel like that is a default for many projects nowadays, where it's like, okay, you take the right cinematographer, and even if he is using an iPhone, he can light it. Like, he could figure it out.
The thing, it also it also shows that you don't really understand cameras, because all you really need to know is how far you can push and pull a camera. Doesn't matter what camera it is. That's all you need to know, is just what can you do with this camera, and then you will know how you need to, what you need to add and take away outside of the camera in order to get the shot that you're going for.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, like, the body of the camera is the body of the camera, right? Like, it kind of, definitely there are some that are better than others, but the lens is a good investment, depending on what kind of glass you're using. And again, if you know the parameters of the camera, I might need to add some more light here, or I might need to push in a little bit more here, or like reframe this kind of way, instead of focusing on having the big, fancy, expensive camera.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'm really saddened by it, because I think it goes beyond just cinematography. It's just like, oh, this kid's got an Avid machine at his house. Right. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't make him a good editor. This guy's got like 8,000 plugins for his After Effects machine.
Doesn't matter if you don't know how to use it, or if you didn't shoot it right, or if you're not using it in order to enhance the storytelling of your project.
Yeah. And it's a shame, because I think they're, like, my advice, because I don't necessarily knock the people that have the equipment and want to kind of get it out there and use that to their advantage, but I think there is a humility to it where you say like, hey, I've got this red camera. I just want to be a part of cool projects. No, I don't necessarily know how to use it. But I want to be part of your shoot and, find a cinematographer and I'll let you guys use it as long as I get to essentially shadow and just be part of everything, step by step. So that eventually the time comes when you've actually learned the craft of cinematography.
Are we talking about a specific person right now?
No, it's
okay.
I honestly think it's all of LA.
Yeah.
And it's not just LA. It's here's the thing. I've seen the remnants of this dating back to film school, and I think that's the thing. Like, because there is such a ease of access into a lot of this. Now all of a sudden, every person that posts a photo on social media is a photographer. It's like, really? Have you learned composition? The rule of thirds and lighting and frame, just all that.
Do you know what ISO is?
Yeah. Or how it's interchangeable with ASA, which is freaky.
Or what your aperture is, or what your exposure is. But yeah, for sure. Like that's all part of it. And then I'm a big fan of like how you tell the story more than like what you use to tell the story, because you can say a lot of things without having your actors say it. You can do it with camera movement. You can do it with the composition of a shot, like where you place a person in a shot says something rather than them acting it out or saying it themselves. And so like that all goes into cinematography and directing and storytelling. So it doesn't matter what kind of camera you have if you don't know how to use those type of aspects.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so much free, as you mentioned, like there's a free version of Photoshop, not literally Photoshop, but like Photoshop-esque. I don't love it, but the fact that every computer that's a Mac comes with iMovie, if you're a PC guy, Windows Movie Maker, listen, just start to learn your basic cuts, if nothing else, and build from there.
YouTube. So it's a wealth of knowledge for free.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? We've gone into various territories. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know.
I would love to hear your thought on storytelling and
my thought on storytelling
and filmmaking. Like, what is your style?
What is my style? It tends to be very documentary-esque, even if it's a narrative. So, like, an Arrested Development would be an example of that. And I think that actually bridged the two quite nicely for me when that show came out. Although I'm not the biggest fan of the current Netflix version. Sorry. But I just think, it's difficult to make a show that came out years ago when you have that large of a cast and they're all widely successful, So, but yeah, for me, I think the biggest thing is I often go to what is the core of what the movie's trying to say? What is the central message? And it doesn't have to be the most deep and impactful thing in the world, but it does help. But more often than not, I'll take a decent premise really well told over a really deep premise told crappy. And I think that's something that happens a lot, and it does bug me because then too often I sound like a negative Nancy when I'm talking about certain stories, and I don't want to be disparaging, but I'm like just missing this someone element. But at the same time, I do see the positive out of it. It's like, okay, well, you know what? No one else was going to tell this story. And you know what? Like, A for effort. Like, I look at, I doubt I know you haven't seen Serenity. I doubt anyone else in the world has seen Serenity. It's the latest movie with Matthew McConaughey and Anne Hathaway.
No, I was thinking about something else. Okay.
And this movie is atrocious. I'm sorry to say. However, what I will applaud it is that it just swings for the fences. It tries to say something so deep, but unfortunately just misses. And as bad as the movie is, I can't help but look at it and be like, you know what? They freaking tried. No, they did, and sometimes like that a failure's a part of it. And trust me, listen. If nothing else, I've failed 1,000 times, so it's not like, and I've never made a movie to that scale to be, distributed nationwide. So who the hell am I at the end of the day? But yeah, I think that's the main thing. I think go back to what the core of caveman times, people talking around a campfire in that time to essentially either entertain themselves or be a cautionary tale. And I think that especially now as things get more global, I think a big part of realizing that we're not so different is being able to tell different stories from different perspectives and realizing the universal truth. There's that old adage, the more specific you make something, the more universal it becomes.
I've never heard that one. I like that.
I'm trying to think of like a more recent example of a perhaps more wide movie. I could go Green Book, but I don't know if that has many people. What's a recent movie that you saw?
I saw Green Book.
You saw Green Book.
I have a Green Book sketch coming out. You should watch it. So keep your eyes open.
I'm trying to think like mainstream, like okay, but let's take Green Book. Right, at the end of the day, it's a very specific time period. It's it's a very specific characters. Like it's a musician with a very specific music genre. It's an Italian American guy from New York, and yet how more universal can that idea be that two people who couldn't be more apart can form a friendship, a bond that transcends color, gender, and so forth. And I think that's people will say these are very challenging times, but challenge is necessary for growth. And so I think we just have to realize that we're all adults, and let's find the common ground.
No, I feel like we're gonna keep fighting until the aliens come. It's pretty much what's gonna happen, and then it'll be us against them. But we're gonna keep fighting each other.
Here's the real esoteric that I'll say. People think like global warming and that we're gonna kill the world. Like, listen, I believe in global warming, but we're not gonna kill the world. We're gonna kill ourselves. So the notion that, which by the way is a very narcissistic notion that we are capable of killing the world. No, the world's just going to eventually kill us because we've been dumb. If we continue in the vein that we're going. So take that for what it is.
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens.
Stay tuned for the next 50. Anyway, so yeah, hopefully that answers your question in some semblance.
It does. I think that was a great note to end on.
All right. Well, where can people follow the channel and you specifically?
Yes, the channel is Camp. If you're on YouTube, channel's Camp, or you can do Abooboo Artistry. Either one of those, I should come up. Black Spiderman web series. Type in web series because somebody else has flooded the streets with Black Spiderman unless we get these numbers up. But yeah, and then there's also, you can go to my website, campproductions.com. If you can't find anything, then it'll be right there for you. That's how you find me. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Khaliel Abooboo. All this, there's links to all of it in the bio. So you should.
And I'll include the links in the description box as well, so that way for ease. I know millennials.
Yeah, you gotta give it to them right there. I mean, technically we're millennials. They gave us the age range. We fall in there. Yeah.
We were good at some things, not good at the others. Anyway, thank you for joining us. Hopefully you found this as enlightening as we certainly did.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. And be sure to subscribe if you like this and you haven't yet. There's other lessons. There's other interviews that I do of this nature. So hopefully you've enjoyed that. Also, the number one thing you can do is just give this a thumbs up, rate, comment. The more specific you are with what you're looking to learn, the better I can cater either the interviews or my lessons towards that. Otherwise, I'm just kind of pulling out of a hat, And also, if you're a new host in the LA area, then I encourage you to check out AfterBuzz TV. Or if you're a college student, they have a great internship program. Obviously, I've been involved in that for a number of years since the beginning, and it's taught me a lot of things that I know today. Kevin, Undergaro, Marinos, fantastic mentors, and so who better to mentor you if you are in that a host or an intern, right? And last but not least, you can subscribe to the show on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Basically, anywhere that's convenient to you in either video format or audio format is there. And shout outs to producer Juliette Vibert at Bonjour Juliette. And of course, Anthony Becerra, who is now a new addition editing these videos at TonyBTony_. Don't forget that underscore. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time with another one of my lessons. Bye.